Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it's Duck Phil, gonna bring you some Heart of the Swarm action today. Zerg versus Protoss is the meal of today, so hopefully you're all ready for that. It is going to be a long one, of course, so as you can see by the YouTube timeline there, it's a pretty damn long game, but I'm sure there are still some other people out there who like seeing some long games, and especially in Heart of the Swarm, we're going to look forward to seeing a Zerg versus Protoss, given that this matchup can be a little bit of an interesting one when it gets to late game. But let's see how our players fare here today. Down in the bottom left-hand side is our red Zerg player playing for Team Liquid. It is their new recruit doing a wonderful job. It is LiquidSnute. He's going to be here on Newkirk Precinct. Meanwhile, his opponent down in the bottom right-hand side is our blue Protoss player. He's playing for Caronti. I'm sorry, guys, but just to, like a PSA, you really shouldn't put numbers in your team name like that. I really think it doesn't work too well. I tell you what, no joke. This is a true story. I actually, for the longest time, had thought that Own 3D was actually Owned TV. Like, you pronounce the 3 as an E, so it's owned, but apparently that was wrong. And then, like, for the entire time when Owned was going down the, Own 3D was going down the drain, I was sitting there like, am I the only person who pronounced it like that? Anyway, our Protoss player down here, after all of that, is ZvP. He's playing, of course, for that team. We'll see what he gets up to on this map. So I am actually using a little bit of a different recording sort of setup this time. It is actually going to be a little bit different. It's going to allow me a couple of different options and an extra little tool to use, which we'll probably see in just a moment. Of course, in fact, hopefully you can't hear that garbage truck that's outside, but whatever, who cares? It's the sounds of a recorder. But anyway, so we're going to have a quick expand here from ZvP, just throwing the Nexus down straight away. Of course, Snute wanting to do the same thing himself, as all Zergs will want to do. We'll see how he reacts when one of his overlords gets across, and if he gets a good read on what's going on. It's probably going to be a little bit of a long time before he can actually see what's going on. He's just going to scout through the main base of his opponent and find out what's happening in the natural as well. But yeah, as I was saying, a little bit of a new style to recording. What you'll see is just slight differences in a couple of things, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But of course, one thing I wanted to mention, of course, is that I am going to start doing a little bit of a different sort of videos and these kinds of things on the channel, looking at shorter videos with sort of informational stuff, and looking at certain things like, you know, just sort of highlights, previews, and you know, predictions of upcoming events, all these kinds of things. And hopefully you guys are sort of into that content. One other thing I was also looking at doing is for longer games like this, we're actually looking at doing just shorter highlight videos, sort of like 5-minute videos, so you can see, alright, what action sort of happens in this game. And of course, I know there are a lot of people who don't actually have time to watch longer games, even sort of like 20-minute games. A lot of people just sort of like, I can't be bothered watching this because there's so much content out there. So I was actually looking at doing just sort of short 5-minute, kind of like a sports report you would see on the news, where you just sort of get a short 5-minute look at a game and sort of see what happened during it, and you know, just to occupy some time. I'm sure that mobile and tablet users might like that kind of thing. So if you would really like to see that, please let me know in the comments, or just, you know, email me, duckphillol@gmail.com. I'd be happy to hear some feedback, and if you guys would be interested in that kind of thing. Just looking at what these guys have gotten up to, of course, Snute just having a quick look now. He knows that that was a little bit of a quicker expansion, I would assume he knows, just because of the timing of that Nexus being up. And as we can see, Forge Fast expand from ZvP, just making sure that everything is looking hunky-dory here. There is a little bit of an opening there just to allow his probes and those kinds of things to get out. Overlord is going to have a quick run across the Nexus here, just wants to see exactly what's going on, but he is going to get out of position now, or move out of that position, just because there is a Stalker about to pop out. So one other thing I just wanted to mention as well is I'm going to be streaming on the Handsome Nerd Network. That is correct, the place where Tasteless does his streaming as well. I'll be streaming on there. It is going to be at a very late time if you're in America. I'm sorry, but the only sort of slot that was available for me was at my sort of prime time, which is about 7 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. And of course, that means it's very late for you guys in America. And if you're in Europe, it's generally pretty early in the morning. So hopefully you guys can all tune in. I'll just be streaming standard sort of ladder games, maybe some analysis casts and those kinds of things. And of course, a bit of Dota 2 as well, if you guys are into that. So enough of that ranting. Let's have a look at where the status of this game is at the moment. We've currently got ViPro up to 2 bases, of course. He's up to 41 probes. Looking good in both of the mineral lines here. Going to continue the saturation at both of his bases, throwing down a couple of extra gateways as well now. My computer seems to be struggling a little bit right now. I'm not sure what the deal with that is, but we do have, it looks like Snute was attempting to get a creep tumor down, but actually lost it there. A little bit sad about that. ViPro is going to be happy with that start to the game. But Snute now up to a total of 56 drones. He's going to be very happy with that. Relatively, you know, unharassed for this entire start of the game, allowing him to get allowing to get his economy into a really good shape. We're up to around about, yeah, I think it's just he's up to 4 geysers in total. Interesting layout. He's got 1 at the third. He's got 1 in the main here as well. And then, of course, the 2 inside the natural as well. So a little bit of an interesting sort of distribution of those gases there from Snoop. But he is going to grab a few roaches to prepare. It is around about that time, sort of around about the 7 to 8 minute mark is when you want to get ready for all sorts of harassment coming out from whether it be a Protoss or a Terran player. We've got ViPro now switching in to his warp gates. We've also got that Twilight Council now finished up as well. And we'll probably move into this. We've pretty much just sort of moved into the mid game. Just these 2 guys just not really bothering with any sort of early aggression right at the start here. Of course, we can see the ViPro is just going to wander through, having a quick look at what tech is available for his opponent. We'll also have a quick look at the gas as well to see how much gas is going to be coming in when he can get a good read on that. But he is going to expand behind this. Got the security of a couple of sentries here, along with the Immortal as well. Going to have another Immortal just about to pop out too, along with +2 weapons also on the way. So things are, as we said, proceeding at a very relatively passive pace for both of these guys here. One thing you will notice is the way that ViPro is walling this off. Very nicely done with the way that this is going to look. Of course, you got a little bit of a wall here that sort of extends down towards the nexus at the third base. It's also going to have a couple of cannons, sorry, a pylon and a cannon just here to make sure that this edge is protected as well. This means that he will have a lot more space to sort of, well, a lot less space to force field. He's just going to have to throw down a couple of force fields to protect this third base, and we'll see how that affects a little bit later on. The observer has scouted about, has seen that the third base is up and running, got all sorts of gases coming out from Snute here as well. Double observers just taking a quick peek, moving into position so he can see when his opponent's forces are moving about the map. As we can see though, Snute just, he wanted to have a quick look at the third base, but it looks like his roaches and lings are just going to head back for now. There will be a, well, looks like a large force of units just getting prepared here. It looks like it was kind of that old school, the old school roach ling kind of all in that is getting prepared by Snute, but he is getting up a whole bunch of lings. He's actually got the spire just about to complete as well. The big mushroom building is about to pop out. A couple of extra hatcheries as well are about to finish up for Snute just to make sure he's got some really good production coming out of his base right now. And Snute getting prepared because there is this push coming about. It's a little bit of a Sentry Immortal kind of play, but there is a lot of Stalkers contained in this mix. He's going to be able to warp in a few more units here as well. Not sure what that was about, Mr. ViPro, unfortunately putting down a time warp on top of his warp prism there, unfortunately pressing the wrong button, I would assume. He was actually looking to press T on the warp prism, but actually pressed it on the mothership core, so that was a little bit unfortunate for him, wasting a little bit of that energy. But the mothership core will, depends when this fight happens, because it is actually about to happen. And Snute trying to come around, but unfortunately is force fielded off. A nice wall of those force fields, pretty well done actually, just got to say with that. But so ViPro in a weird position. Normally he's looking to take this base here. He's saying, where is this hatchery just here? But of course, you know, he did scout out that the other one was up at the top left-hand position. But here we go. The battle ensues. Nice force field, keeping some of the units out. And the mothership core actually does pick up enough energy for a recall back home, because that was going to be an absolute slaughter. With all of these mutas now out, it looks as if we will get a reaction from ViPro. Triple Stargates back at home. He will have to defend against these incoming attacks. We got all of these mutas now out. That's a pretty decent total of mutas. 23 mutas out on the map. A lot of lings down on the ground as well. Mutas still waiting to try and sweep through one of the sides. It looks like some more cannons going to be built to try and protect ViPro against this attack, but a few force fields go down, and that may actually lock him into position there, but we'll see how it goes. Looks like the mutas are just going to come across and take down the cannons that are on the top side of that base there. And with the warp prism going down, some of these units are sort of stuck behind each other. Perhaps not the best position for ViPro to defend in, but he did lower some of that surface area. And now, as we can see, he does have a little bit of time. He's bought himself a little bit of time. He is going to go for triple Phoenix production here. A very interesting play. Of course, a bit of a reaction to those mutas. A lot of Zerg players these days, of course, beefing up the muta counts. They fly a lot faster. They've got a little bit better regen. And of course, you know, when you add those things into what they already were, they're still a pretty damn good unit. And we'll see what Snute is going to do here. He's going to come through, perhaps take a few shots at some of these the Phoenix that are here already, but he is going to try and take down at least one of these Stargates. I don't think he's going to have enough time to take that down, as the Stalkers have now come through. These guys have got Blink and +2 on their weapons, so they're pretty decent at dealing with the mutas. And ViPro, well, for the moment, he seems relatively secure. Of course, he does have the Phoenix now just popping up. Just having a quick look at the work account. Snute up to 91 drones with 4 bases, well saturated. He is looking to take a 5th base just in the middle section as well. Of course, this this map has so many bases easily ready for the taking. Of course, he can come down and take this one off to the side as well. And we'll see if he is going to pick up that base quickly or not, but he has actually picked up not only the 5th, but also a 6th hatchery, just finishing up at the battle. Again, gets started at the 3rd base, just sort of in between the natural and the 3rd base there. The roaches and the lings just trying to charge their way through, taking down the forge. ViPro trying to control with these Phoenix here. He is able to pull some of them back, but it looks like the muta count is just a little bit too high for those Phoenix to directly engage. He's going to have to use some of that wonderful micro to try and take care of some of these mutas. He does do a little bit of that, and the lings and roaches inside the main are cleaned up for the most part, with the Nexus cannon being thrown down there. So ViPro, you know, he is doing a good job. Of course, he's up to 3 bases, and he's got all sorts of tech back at home. The onion pulse crystals being built right now, and he does have the Robo Bay prepared just in case he's going to execute that switch into the sort of Colossus tech, which we would expect is actually going to come across very soon, because he will need that if he actually wants to push across. As we can see, Snute is continuing to add to the muta count, or he's actually slowed down with the muta count. He has added in a couple of corruptors to try and deal with those Phoenix, but the Phoenix count is just growing continually up to 12. He's also, of course, just about got the anion pulse crystals about to finish up here. Of course, the Phoenix by themselves aren't the most wonderful of units against the corruptors, but when you if they get to shoot at those mutas, they will absolutely blast them apart. But now we do see that Snute has switched into Roach Hydra. We've got some Hydras now popping out. Triple Void Rays being constructed by ViPro. He's also got level 1 weapons being built right now as well, but it looks like the roaches are just going to continue attack. Snute wanting to just sort of put some pressure on his opponent. Wants to say, you know what, buddy, you're not going to take a 4th base because I'm going to continually harass you. And despite that, ViPro is going to try and get rid of the destructible debris just down here. And it looks as if the Phoenix are going to chase after some of these corruptors, trying to take them out. There is a pretty good total of Phoenix here. 14 are in the mix on the map at the moment, just dancing around with those mutas. It is a deadly dance in the sky between the mutas and the Phoenix. But as we can see, Snute is going to have to transition. He's currently got his +2 to missile attacks, just researching right now. Carapace is also on the way. And with those Hydras coming out, he is going to have a pretty decent ground force. But the issue will be, will ViPro have too much to defend against that? Of course, everyone will know, you know, the big thing these days for Protoss players is to pick up a whole bunch of Void Rays. You can see Tempest and Templar as well added into the mix, and it becomes a very deadly Sky Toss army, which is very hard to deal with in the mid to late game of a PvZ. So this is how we're going to be very interested to see how Snute is going to deal with this. Looks as if he is going to try and push into the natural base here. Perhaps not the best of ideas, with ViPro coming just straight across, throwing down a few force fields. The Void Rays up in the sky. The Blink Stalkers now just coming across on the ground as well. I don't think these Hydras are going to survive for too long. They don't even have, or they do have their move speed buff, but it's not doing too well when you've got all these Phoenix up in the air that are lifting them up and telling them they cannot go home. They have not clicked their heels 3 times. And, well, that is, well, that's sort of the end of that attack just for the time being. Snute able to escape with some of his Hydras here, adding in a lot of Lings. We've got a huge total of Lings that have just popped out. 58 Lings in total, of course. One of the ways that the Zerg players react sometimes when they're being pushed is to just flood in the Zerglings, and it can do a really good job. But of course, you know, we're starting to move into this dangerous mixture where Colossi are coming out. We've got level 3 weapons also being researched right now by ViPro. And that means that he's going to have a really deadly mixture just about to come up. And ViPro, well, you know, you've got these Phoenix, they're active units. What are you going to do? You're going to pick up some Queens, kill some Overlords, and perhaps see if you can grab some of these drones that are unprotected right now inside the main base. So it's good to see that he's keeping these active. You always want to keep those Phoenix active, especially if you've got quite a decent clump of them. And right now, he's burning down the Overlords. Snoop going to have to rebuild some of these, but while he's doing that, there is going to be an attack into that sort of position. Yet again, this is a very, very difficult spot for Snoot. I'm not sure if this is the best way to attack in, but of course he does have these Hydras with 2-2, a wonderful amount of damage that they put out. He is actually supply block right now, so he won't be able to rebuild some of these units until these extra Overlords pop out. And in fact, there you go, he has actually gone back into the black with the supply count right now. But back at home, he is losing a lot of drones, and actually, as we can see on the worker kill tally, ViPro just catching up with the workers killed in total after some of those run-bys earlier on in the game. And Snoot says, you know what, it is fun time, throwing down a couple of Fungals and locking down the Phoenix, getting rid of that threat, and that will be the, well, pretty much the end of all of that harassment from ViPro. So Snoot, he has pretty much secured his all of his bases now that that's done. But the big issue, of course, is that the army of ViPro is starting to grow, and it is starting to get a little bit more deadly. Of course, he hasn't actually maxed out once this entire game, just due to the constant harassment from Snoot, but he's getting there very, very quickly with the triple Void Rays being produced, the double Colossi as well, and with all this tech now coming out from ViPro as well, along with some extra gateways, he is going to have a very powerful army in the next probably 5 to 6 minutes coming out. But Snoot doing a wonderful job as always. A couple of Lings just scouting about, trying to find out what's going on. We'll find the attempted 5th base at the top right hand side here of ViPro. We can see the creep trimmers are spreading along excellently from Snoot. He is pretty much all across the top section of the map. These Hydras are actually going to just push across and see if they can delay this 5th base from finishing up. Looks like they will be able to come across, just focus firing on that Nexus. A little bit of micro there. Will he be able to get it? I don't think so. The Hydras are actually going to get burned down a little bit too quickly there. Excellently done by ViPro, just moving across and getting there in time to defend against that attack. But more attacks are going to come in from Snoot. These units are out of position here, and so Snoot is going to have free reign over this Nexus. I think this one will definitely go down unless we see perhaps a Nexus cannon there. Does throw it down, but I don't think it's enough. It's going to go down. There it goes, and while ViPro will come across and defend against this, throwing down a couple of force fields there to defend against the Hydras and not let them run away, he's actually lost that Nexus. So the army count is really starting to get dangerous for ViPro right now, because he's just moving into that deadly mixture. Also cleaning up some creep tumors at the top, very nicely done by him. But Snoot, well, he's starting to move into the Broodlord, Infestor, and of course the Corruptor mixture. So where are those Infestors? There they are. We've got a few Infestors out on the map, just a total of 5. It's not a huge amount right now, but we'll perhaps see if he does move into a higher count. But the one thing we're going to want to keep an eye on is the composition from Snoot. Of course, at this stage of the game, you do see a lot of players really struggle dealing with this sort of very powerful laser death ball, which harkens back to the very old days of Wings of Liberty, when the Colossus Void Ray army was one of the most powerful things out there. And, you know, we can see that Snoot is doing some run-bys. He's trying to buy himself some time. Of course, what he's doing right now is investing in these Lings. He wants to get some really good mineral damage done, taking out some of the economy, some probes, maybe even a Nexus if he's lucky. And then what that does for him is that buys him some time to get these Broodlords out. We'll probably see the Corruptor count increase as well. But he's also letting himself get some more upgrades going now as well, with the flyer attacks just being researched at the Greater Spires. We can see level 2 on that, not too bad at all. Level 1 Carapace just being researched, and there it is, the increase in the Corruptor count, because of course Corruptor Corruptors, they do a pretty good job against the Void Rays. I don't want to say they're perfect against them, because now with the Void Rays doing that extra damage against armor, they do quite a huge amount of damage. But there we go. Looks as if the battle does commence in the middle section of the map. Vipers coming in, blinding cloud. We also saw a few ducks at the start of the battle. But Snute, with some good positioning here, he actually is going to be able to take out a lot of the ground army. But the question is he going to be able to deal with the air army? The Void Rays up in the sky are just doing an insane amount of damage. Of course, the carrier sitting off at the back, throwing in those interceptors when needed, and it looks like the Void Rays are going to be able to polish off some of these units, and of course those spine crawlers on the ground. So it looks like Snute, he's sort of held his own there, relatively speaking. 22 Corruptors are being built right now, and that's going to throw him into a huge count of those units. Of course, these the Corruptors, when you push them past a certain amount, they do an excellent job at taking down air units. With, of course, the Corruption spell, they're able to just tear apart some of these some of the Sky Toss units. But you know, it's going to be a big question of, can he deal with the constant triple production of all of these Void Rays that are coming out from ViPro? Now, the upgrades are still continuing to come along. +2 to shields, +2 to armor, and +3 to weapons for the Protoss player. So that's going to put him in a very good position. And of course, as we said before, the Sky Toss army can be very difficult to deal with. So I'm really looking forward to how Snute deals with this. And I think he's actually going to stick with a little bit of an old school composition here. Of course, it takes a lot of gas, but Infestor, Broodlord, Corruptor, and maybe even a couple of Vipers thrown in for good measure as well. We'll see how he goes. He still does have just the one Viper out on the map at the moment, but I'm not sure how much that's going to do by itself. We'll probably see a few more thrown into the mix, but with +3 weapons being researched for those Broodlords, we've also got +1 on the melee attacks coming about. We may see a bit of a switch here from Snute, but he is going to attack into this, well, what is normally the third base here. The Void Rays charging up, activating their prismatic alignment. DT's on the ground, is running about, trying to take apart some of those broodlings on the ground. And with the Nexus Cannon active, it looks as if ViPro may be able to hold this together. He just needs to get these Archons out there. Of course, the Archons are auto-attacking onto some of those the broodlings there, which is making them just a little bit useless in some of this attack. If he can get them into position and take down some of these Corruptors and the Broodlords at the front, then he can certainly put himself in a good spot. But I mean, the Broodlords have just been able to lay waste to that base. The Corruptors protecting them from the front. Some of these probes, unfortunately, having no home for the time being. No ViPro. The Time Warp does not affect the Corruptors up in the air. Perhaps it affects those Broodlings, which might be nice, but you know, it's not going to do too well against those air units. So Snute, happy with the job that he's done, has said, alright, it's time to just head back a little bit, just time to regroup, protect my valuable air army that he's got ready to rumble here. And now, as we said before, with the Archons stuck at the back, they weren't able to do too much, but when they can move through to the front, we'll see if they are able to tear apart some of these Broodlords and the Corruptors up in the air. They do have 2-3 on their, or 0-2-3 on their upgrades if you want to get technical, so they've got some really good upgrades right now. Of course, ViPro doing a really interesting thing here, just investing in the shields quite a lot more than armor. Of course, as we can see, he doesn't actually have like a really good ground army at the moment. He's just really investing in the Sky Toss, as we pointed out a few times, and that has meant that the ground armor upgrades is not actually that important. If he can make sure that the Sky Army is as powerful as it can be, then he's going to put himself in a really good position. But as we can see, there were a couple of proxy attacks coming about from ViPro. He's trying to come through and maybe get some damage done at these side bases, but it looks like the army has actually moved into position, and with some of those Corruptors grouped up, the Archons are going to tear them apart. But no, the Corruptors do escape. We'll see how much damage is done here. Snute in quite a lot of trouble. His Broodlord army has been reduced to a total of 1, and even that is going to go down. There you go. The Broodlord army has been absolutely decimated by ViPro here, so he is able to keep this base down to the southern side. And if he can get himself re-established here, bring in some of that gas. It's not so much the minerals that are left over at this base, but of course that gas that's there. And if he can secure this base, then he can certainly put himself in quite a decent position. But as we can see, he's still struggling to actually get any harassment done. What he's looking for is that late game composition, but we're still struggling to see that. He's suffering without the Storm. Of course, we do see that getting the Templar Archives being built up now, but without the Storm, he's not able to throw down any Psy Storms on top of the Corruptors to try and keep them back from the Void Rays and the Colossus, which in turn means that those guys are actually suffering at the wrath of the huge amount of corruptors that are out right now. 23 in total. They're going to be protecting the 7 Broodlords that are out. We've got 1 Viper, of course. The 5 Queens may even start coming along. I would not be surprised if we saw Snute just start investing in some Queens to make sure that he's got the transfuse. And of course, they do a decent amount of damage against you know, air units, and that kind of helps out as well. But the Lings now coming through. It looks as if they're going to try and take out the cannons, not targeting down that Templar Archives. Perhaps that may be a little bit of an issue there for Snute, but it looks like we'll get some of the static defenses down. But yeah, I kind of would have liked to have seen the Lings targeting down that Templar Archives, but unfortunately, just a little bit too much to do on this map right now for Snute. He's currently moving positions, looking to move down to the southern side of the map. It looks like he is going to clean up the destructible debris, I would assume. I'm a little bit surprised that this base has not been taken a little bit earlier. Another avenue that he may actually take is to push into this base from the side. As we can see, he can come across and just sort of siege up this base from the air with this sort of limited space for ViPro to try and move into. With the limited ground area, the Archons can't really help out in this spot, so we'll see if he is able to do some work there, but it looks like he is going to start coming through. Looks like the Broodlords are now moving into that position here, of course. As we can see, they're just going to come across and try and take out some of the gateways. Should be able to get the Nexus if he can move in there on time, because ViPro at the moment is still, well, I don't know what he's doing. He's just having a break over here right now. It does evacuate the probes, but the Nexus will go down. Of course, there's still a decent amount of gas here inside the 2 geysers here. About 2,000 in total. Mothership core goes down. Not too happy about that, but well. And also, one thing to keep a note of is the creep spread continues from Snute. It's you know, it's 35 minutes into this game, and he's still continuing on with some of these active tumors through the middle section of the map. He's also just having a quick look up at the top side, sees that there is an extra base up here for ViPro, and we'll see what he's going to do about that. This is also another base where he certainly can just sort of attack in this way to try and attack into this the Protoss base up the top here. But let's just have a quick look at Snute's vision. We'll keep an eye on what he is up to right now, just sort of seeing what he is going through, trying to continue on with these attacks, just making sure his macro is looking good. The Queen's injecting, of course, all of these things here, and we can see that he is actually going to attack into that position. Meanwhile, for ViPro, as we can see, he's trying to keep an eye on where that Broodlord army is. Where is it? I need to make sure that all my units are in position to try and attack against this, and make sure that the bases are defended. So he's going to try and retake this base down at the southern side here, and if he can get back up and running with that, that'd be pretty good. But he does finally spot that the Broodlord army now is attacking into the top base here. We'll call this the 6th base. He's going to be able to get himself in a good position right here, as we can see with the Broodlords just hovering over that sort of no man's land right now. They're going to be able to throw down the Broodlings, but it looks like the attack from ViPro, the defense, or perhaps a little bit of offensive, depending on how you want to look at it, is now coming across. Void Rays, Archons, Templar on the ground, and of course a lone carrier at the back and a lone Colossus as well. But here we go. Looks like Snute going to throw down some reasonably decent fungals. Doesn't actually catch everything that he wanted to, but the Void Rays are going to be the target of him right now. Does get a really decent fungal on top of all of that, and as we can see, it looks like ViPro is able to push back the army for the time being. Snute's going to have a little bit of trouble trying to defend this, but we'll see if he is able to hold it back for the time being. A few feedbacks going down. Those Templar, you got to keep them in play, of course, as we've mentioned in some of the longer casts that I've done before. If you can keep your energy units in the game, that is actually a wonderful way of sort of trading later on in the game. Of course, you know, as resources start to deplete, your gas starts running out, your minerals start to run out as well. You really need to invest in a lot of these energy units. So what I would really like to see, apart from Neuroparasite being researched, that is actually a really good idea at this point from Snute. But I would really want to see some more of these Templar. Of course, you want to see these very effective units from ViPro, like the carriers, these kinds of things. And of course, from Snute, we'll see a lot more of these the Infestors, maybe even some Vipers. And of course, these guys are something that can make or break the late game stage of the match. So we'll see how he is going to deal with that. Looks like some Lings now running through. Of course, Snoot has a pretty decent bank of minerals right now. His gas is one thing that is starting to get a little bit questionable. Of course, the infestors now starting to pop out. We got 3 of those just coming along, and he's going to commence a couple of multiple attacks here. Infested Terrans now just tearing apart this base at the top side, not doing as well as they would have in Wings of Liberty. Of course, the old school infested Terrans are a little bit dangerous, I tell you what. But he does also attack inside the main base. One Void Ray is able to clean that up, and it looks like ViPro will hold his top base, of course, holding the bottom base as well down at the southern side. So we can see that he is going to hold together most of his economy. Of course, the work account for Snoot currently sitting at 47. He's actually started trading down quite a lot. Of course, his gases have run out at basically all of his bases. He's just got this one down to the southwest side, and if he can come in and attack this, well, I don't know what, the 7th base of ViPro, then he may be able to stop him from continuing on with the production of those high-tech units. But here we go, the Broodlord army is going to try and move into position here. It looks as if Snoot is again going to try and just come through and attack into this direction here. We use the area tool instead of the arrows, but whatever. You know what I meant right there. And he is going to try and come across, but too many Archons, too many Void Rays, and too many Templar are here on the ground for ViPro right now. So he's going to want to try and protect this base. If he can hold this together, then he certainly will be in a good position coming into this into these later game fights. But as we look at the upgrades, we've got Void Rays with 333. Of course, look at that, the armor, you know, the extra armor from the shields. Of course, the prismatic beam doing 19 damage against armored units. And we'll start to see some very interesting trades here, because Snoot has actually added in a couple of Vipers, and if he can utilize these, snag some of those units and pull them into the death, the little death ball that he's got rolling here of Infestor, Broodlord, and Corruptor, along with those Vipers, then he may be able to pull some of the army apart and then take it slowly down. It's one key thing which you do have to remember in late game is that if you are relying on these energy units, such as the Vipers, such as these Infestors, you do have to be very careful with what you're doing. You have to be patient and calm. As you can see, that's just one Archon. You may see that and you think, well, that's just one Archon, who cares about that? But to Snoot, that is one Archon less that he has to deal with in the later stages of this game. And when you're dealing with a Protoss player who's got a huge amount of Void Rays and, of course, is wanting to invest in some more, that is one thing that you don't want to have to deal with, are those extra little units. So, as you can see, he's going to come along, some Blinding Cloud going down on top of the cannons here. Nicely done by Snoot, making sure that he can attack into this base, but unfortunately the Lings actually perhaps not the best targets there. May have wanted to go for the Nexus, but it looks like he will just slowly downsize that the cannon defense here of ViPro. But ViPro sitting on a bank of 7,000, over almost 3,000 gas, is going to be able to rebuild that very quick smart, and he is also adding some Tempest to the mix. As we can see here, these guys will do a ridiculous, what is it, 95 damage against massive air units. Of course, those Broodlords, and Snoot has found a little bit of a sweet spot here, has found some of these grouped up Void Rays and Colossi here. If he can continue to lock them down, then he can certainly just start to wear them down with the fungal growth. Perhaps not well, you know, you can say it's perhaps not the most efficient kind of thing, but I mean, considering he's trading energy for minerals and gas, this is actually perfect for him at this stage of the game, because that's what he wants to do right now. He wants to say, alright, well, I'm not going to use too many more of my resources, I'm going to just use energy to take down your units, which cost you gas and minerals. So here we go, Snoot now moving forward. Not sure that was the best idea to move those Infestors across, but he does get a Neural Parasite on one of the Templar here, the Tempest, sorry, actually takes apart one of the units there, but it looks like the Vipers now come along. The Void Rays caught out of position there, getting abducted, but it looks like the Vipers will go down with that attack, and the Void Rays are commencing their attack. Wow, my sounds just went a little bit nuts there. There is so much going on this map right now. Templar coming across, throwing down some storms. Void Rays are still charged up, but they do suffer the extra damage coming out of the corruption spell there, and ViPro is forced to move back, and I think that may be a very bad decision for him to try and attack into that position. Snoot playing patiently and with some cunning as well is able to just start destroying some of this army, and we can see that the supply count of ViPro starts to dip down to 130 supply against the 176 of Snoot, and the Corruptors are just going to tear apart the remaining air forces of ViPro, and that that may actually be a big moment in this game. Of course, we've sort of mentioned how powerful the late game SkyToss army is, but when you lose so much in that trade like that, that actually gives the Zerg a really powerful position. And while Snute is actually just down to his last remaining dabbles of resources here at the southern edge of the map, if he can keep this army together, if he can keep these the Vipers out here, if they can stay alive, of course, sucking down some of these buffet buildings in the middle of the map here, then he should be able to win this. I like looking at 170 supply versus 125 with the power units of the Protoss player currently sitting at 6 Void Rays, and you know, when you've only got like 6 power units, that's actually a little bit of a worrisome position here at the 46-minute mark. So Snute going to start laying siege to the topside base. We'll be able to take out one of the Stargates, of course. Broodlords don't care about the cannons as well. And it looks like he will slowly chip away with those Broodlords, and it will be able to take down this base. I don't think the ViPro has got too much left in the tank. He is trying to rebuild some of these Void Rays here. Of course, there are 12 out on the map at the moment, and you know, if he can get some wonderful storms, perhaps, and you know, get the Void Rays in a really good position to deal with the Corruptors and of course those Vipers as well, then he may be able to salvage this. But it is starting to look very precarious for our Protoss player. Starting to slowly just fall apart here. Snute says, you're not going to take that base, so I'm going to have it this time. And well, pretty much once he secures that, the game's over, because a Zerg player here at the almost the 50-minute mark with that extra base is going to be a very scary thing for the Protoss to behold. But let's not count ViPro out just yet. We've got a lot of Void Rays here. They've got their prismatic alignment, of course, as we said before, doing 19 damage to, well, every unit that Snute has here, apart from the, actually including the Vipers, sorry, I forgot they were armored, but doing 19 damage at, you know, what is it, 0.5 of a second here. So we'll see how ViPro is going to deal with this. Just looking at the probes now retreating, there's nothing left at this base here. I would perhaps like to see him long distance mining from this if he can, but I mean, it's not as if he needs too much. He's got a mineral bank of 4,000 right now, and he is going to come down towards this towards the base at the southern end. Actually, still a lot of gas left in these geysers here, over almost 2,000 gas in total, and it looks like the army of Snute is getting prepared. He's just moving some of these spine crawlers. We'll see him just getting positioned to you know, move into this base and sort of make his own little home there. But Snute is well, he's still continuing to bring out some of that army. He's getting ready for the attack here. Got the Broodlords, got the Vipers, the Corruptors at the back, and of course there are still I'm pretty sure there are still a couple of or just one Infestor left out on the map. So if need be, you can throw down a Neuroparasite or perhaps a Fungal or two. But looks like the Lings are going to try and push into this base here. He is Snute starting to just move into a lot of Lings out on the map, just because he does have so many minerals available to him, and it looks like he will be able to take down some of the probes. If he can get rid of some of these guys, then the game is effectively won. But up at the middle section of the map, it looks like Snute is going to lose his base here. I don't think that's going to stay up too long, and in fact is going to lose quite a lot of his spine full of static defense as well. And Archon moving to the front. Few abducts now coming out from Snute as well, able to pull some of the Void Rays out, and if he can perhaps snipe these down before they escape, does pull them out and does take 3 of them down. In fact, make it a 4th, yes he does, and look to grab a 5th as well. But unfortunately for ViPro, his unit count is really starting to dip right now, down at 151 supply, 19 Void Rays in total. Yes, a very sort of nice amount of Void Rays there. But you know, when you're trying to deal with 19 Corruptors, we got a stray Fungal or two, may actually just win the game here for Snute. And of course the Vipers that are out as well, able to throw down you know, that abduct to pull some of the Void Rays out of position. If he can just catch them out, slowly whittle them down, then this game is effectively won for our Liquid Zerg player. And as you can see, ViPro trying to find a little bit of a sweet spot to take down this base. We'll get that again, but this means that those Void Rays are open for business here. Takes them down, and it looks like the Corruptors are going to have their way with the few remaining. But the Templar come across, throwing down some storms, but there is just too much here for Snute. He looks like he is going to be able to take care of this army with the Corruptors out, with the Vipers out here as well. The Viper count has actually increased to 9. That's quite a decent amount. And there are those Queens that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Sort of, I don't know if that's a little bit late or early for them, but I was sort of expecting them a little bit earlier to throw down some transfuses to make sure some of these units are all healed up. But he hasn't done too much of that just yet. But what he is going to do, look at this. 52 minutes into the game, and Snute's saying, you know, I need some more creep. This is incredible stuff from the Liquid Zerg player. You often see quite a lot of players just sort of stop with the creep spread, you know, anywhere after the sort of the 25 to 30 minute mark, especially after it has been all cut down by their opposing player. But Snute just continuing on, knows that he needs it for the vision, also needs it to place down those spine crawlers and the spore crawlers as well. But it looks like perhaps the final blow will be dealt by some of these lings up at the top edge of the map. The last remaining, well, pretty much a non-functioning base here for ViPro. Does have some cannons, has got the Templar Archives as well, but I mean, that's not exactly something that he needs too much of right now. What he does need is just a little bit more of an army, but unfortunately, he's having trouble rebuilding right now because there is a very limited amount of gas out for him. He is going to have a few more lings just poking inside this base, and in fact, that is probably going to be it here for ViPro, because once these probes are dead and this base is taken down, he's got basically nothing left. He's going to throw the probes into the wolves, and with the where is that? There it is. Money Fungal catching off all of those probes, and ViPro is probably going to GG. I don't think there is long left for him in this match, because the Void Rays are not going to be able to deal with all of these, the Vipers, of course, the Corruptors as well. Pulling back some of the Void Rays there, taking them down slowly but surely. A very patient game, a very well thought out game from the Liquid Zerg player. Wonderfully done by him. It is good to see a player just really taking their match slowly and slowly taking down his opponent. So there you go, a little bit of hope for those Zerg players out there. Hopefully you enjoyed that game. A lot of action all over the place, a lot of switches. As I said, make sure you catch me streaming on the Handsome Nerd Network. It is around about 7 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. We'll be doing some Dota 2 and some StarCraft 2 stuff, mostly Mech Terran, of course, and I hope to catch you all next time. Sometimes the Anion Pulse Crystals doesn't actually matter as much. It's very dependent on micro. This is definitely one of those things where if you have superior micro, you can find ways to beat the Anion Pulse Crystals, but generally 9